So, with the emergence of this new filter that allows AI to take and then supplement it over a real picture, I figured this would be a fun opportunity to talk about something that actually directed. So, let me give you a little bit of a history lesson. Before Porco Rosso, before Kiki's Delivery Service, before My Neighbor Totoro, before Castle in the Sky, before Nausicaa of the Valley of the Winds, there was Lupin III, which catalogs the adventures of the grandson of Arsène Lupin as described in the many works of the Gentleman Thief written by Maurice Leblanc. I'm not French, so I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The manga was originally created by Monkey Punch. Obviously, that is a pen name, that is not his real name, but for simplicity's sake, Monkey Punch. Well, the manga was so popular that it ended up getting its own series. Well, that's actually a bit of an understatement. So much like how James Bond throughout the years has had multiple actors, Lupin has been very much the same way. The main designation is the color jacket he's wearing. The first series was known as the Green Jacket series. It lasted for about 30 episodes, and that is where I ended up directing a good chunk of that series, as well as gave a bit of direction for the much more popular Red Jacket series. Now, the Red Jacket series is where we have 2 episodes directed by, we got episode 145 and 155, originally meant to be the series finale. However, it would later spin off to a somewhat less successful Pink Jacket series. It would then be revived later, starring the character of Fujiko Mine, as well as giving Lupin a blue jacket later. But that's going a little too far into the future. Sticking with the Red Jacket series, that is where he got his directorial debut for movies. He worked on several episodes, like I said, of the Green Jacket series, as well as a few other television shows before that. So I will admit, in doing the research, the timeline gets a little fuzzy. I'm not necessarily sure which of these came first, if it was Cagliostro that came first, or if it was this episode, which would later be renamed Albatross Wings of Death for the English dub. And I know for sure that this episode came out much later, but it came out before founded. So let me just get a little bit of history in terms of the dubbing, because this is a rather fascinating thing. I will admit, I was kind of hoping to do a bit of a dub comparison, but this is all that exists for these 2 rather landmark episodes. So we're going to start with the first movie to be dubbed, which would later be known as Warriors of the Winds. This is a very controversial movie, and I've gone more into detail as to where the differences lie, but all you need to know is that this is a major butchering compared to the original Nausicaa of the Valley of the Winds. There, the history gets a little fuzzy. The basic story was that after realizing that this version existed, basically refused to let anybody dub his films. But yet, the crazy thing is, all the movies received English dubs shortly after they were released. First there was Warriors of the Winds, which the best name I can give for who dubbed this would be Manson International. This would then be followed up by the Way dub of Castle in the Sky. Now, I just want to note that that is not the dub that's actually contained on this disc. It's a very difficult dub to find, but there is quite a dedicated fan base to this Way dub. From there, the dubs started to go in a better direction. Carl Masick of Streamline Pictures saw the original dub of Castle in the Sky and is like, well, it's okay, but I think it could be done better. And so, he was the one that was tasked for dubbing the next few films. Starting off with My Neighbor Totoro. And this is actually the streamlined version that I have in my hands. This, much like the Castle in the Sky dub, has a very dedicated fan base behind it. This was then followed up by the lesser-known streamlined dub of Kiki's Delivery Service. Once again, it's not actually in this tape, as you can clearly see. This one was distributed by Buena Vista Pictures, which is a subsidiary of Disney. And then following this, it was realized that was a bit of a big name. So it got to a point where they started to dub some of the lesser known properties that he worked on, such as the Castle of Cagliostro. Now, this is actually one of the fun things. I do love the idea that Discotek Media released a copy that has both the streamlined dub as well as the dub I have in my hands here, known as the manga dub. It's kind of fascinating to note that only these two episodes were dubbed for a very long time. Carl Masick, much like in Nausicaa, The Secret of Blue Water, tried to see about making a deal with the network to be able to dub the rest of the series. Unfortunately, both projects fell through, and this is all we got. And as far as I know, I think this media is only on VHS or through Internet Archives. But well, I like doing it authentically, as you can tell. Those two episodes were dubbed all the way back in 1993. It would take another 10 years before the series would receive a network and a new dub. But the crazy thing is, this particular series only ever made it to episode 79. So to this day, there is still a chunk of the Red Jacket series that has not been dubbed. But anyway, you've probably had enough about the history lesson. Let's actually talk about these episodes. The episode starts with Lupin and the gang getting dinner ready, except for Fujiko. She does manage to meet up with the others under a hail of bullets. You can get a little bit of a taste for love of strong female characters. But then again, the original character of Fujiko was rather strong, but in a different way. Not so much physically, but more in the idea that she could wrap men around her little finger, rather than was a force to be reckoned with, like we see in this episode, as well as in the Castle of Cagliostro. When the smoke clears, Lupin's camper is destroyed, Fujiko escapes in his car, leaving only a spark plug behind. She gets captured when... Whoa! Talk about a strip search, Well, I think that's adequately censored enough. Her captor isn't worried, as he believes that Wolf will bring back the spark plug to save her. After the titles, we see Lupin has discovered what the spark plug is.
An atomic bomb. Jeez! Two things I hate are garlic and radiation burns.
Lupin reasons that Fujiko couldn't have gone too far to find the detonator. There is only one person with the resources to make such a device. Lohnbach, the owner of an airplane museum. Airplanes. Who was this directed by again? Zenigata shows up to warn Lohnbach that Lupin may try to steal from him. Lohnbach brushes this off, saying that they only have old airplanes, then shows him the pride of his collection.
1929 German Dornier DOX, otherwise known as the Albatross.
They chat on board the Albatross when it's revealed Zenigata is Lupin in disguise. With this, the pair talk about a deal. Fujiko for the detonator. Before an exchange can be made, the real Zenigata drops in, and Lupin makes a hasty escape. The deal is made in neutral waters, only for this to be revealed as a trap. Zenigata is disguised as Fujiko and arrests Lupin and Jigen. Lupin tries to warn the inspector that Lonbach is the bigger threat, but doesn't believe it. Zenigata then performs a strip search on Lupin and Jigen, only to fall for the old exploding hairpiece gag. The pair escape in much the same way as the castle of Cagliostro. They attempt to pursue the Albatross by boat, but are unable to make it. So, they head back to the museum and commandeer another plane, but not before Zenigata boards as well. The group manage to make it to the Albatross. It's just me, but I swear, just seeing that sweep across the Albatross reminds me a lot of Nausicaa. Which, for those of you wondering about a timeline, this episode came out a good 2 years before even the manga of Nausicaa was made. With Lonbach's men trying to take down Lupin, Fujiko is able to escape. She makes it topside in another scene that looks very familiar. She manages to signal Lupin, however she has to hunker down. She manages to do fine though, as she has what looks like a Browning heavy machine gun. Once again, seeing a strong, independent woman holding a heavy machine gun, I just immediately think of Nausicaa. Lonbach then attempts to take down Fujiko himself, but ends up destroying chunks of the Albatross. This reveals that the Albatross is also a factory for making atomic bombs. Lupin manages to destroy 2 more propellers at the cost of his own plane. They all crash through the still flying Albatross. At this point, Lonbach's men know it's time to abandon ship. The gang go for the controls to find that they are about to crash into a nearby mountain. Everybody tries to lighten the load when it's revealed that Lonbach is cutting his losses and escaping with what he has. Perhaps it's just me, but I feel like our mad bomber looks a lot like the dad from the Dola gang. Zenigata pursues, leaving Fujiko, Jigen, and Lupin to land the craft. They manage to do so, and the episode ends. Well, that was a very fun episode. I will admit, I haven't seen the entirety of what is dubbed, just what's on these 2 volumes. And let me just take a quick count to see how many episodes there are. So that's 11. Plus, I do love the idea that Tim's, which is the animation company that brought the series to life, has released a few episodes on their YouTube channel, which I've been able to catch here and there as well. While watching these episodes on YouTube, I've noticed that these 2 tapes have custom intros and outros. The intros pretty much play the same, except they've removed some of the kanji characters, use of the word Lupin, because they were having legal trouble at the time, that's why they refer to him as Wolf, and they even translated the very last picture. As for the end credits, I have no idea where in the world these tapes got that from, as what was actually being played at that time was something completely different. Yeah, I should probably know right now that, well, on the outside, this tape looks alright, but on the inside, well, it's a little scratchy. But if nothing else, I am thankful that the audio survived. I'm sure there's probably some place I can get the picture from. I heard somewhere that the entirety of the Red Jacket series is on Crunchyroll, so perhaps that's the best way to find it. The episode takes place in 1981, where a mysterious robot is going around robbing jewelry stores. Now, I think anybody watching this episode for the first time in this era is going to immediately pick up on the idea that the robot right from Castle in the Sky. I mean, even just looking at the cover, and even looking at the back, it's just kind of like, this looks familiar. But like I said, this episode came out 2 years before even the manga of Nausicaa was penned. Law enforcement attempt to take down the mysterious robot, only to find that it's bulletproof. I'll admit, in seeing this, I am immediately brought back to a Superman cartoon that the Fleischer Studios did, wherein the main baddie had a fleet of robots that all the law enforcement were trying to take down, but they were just unable to do so. Before the robot escapes from the latest heist, Lupin leaves a calling card.
This network has just been informed that the robot the Wolf is using is a top-secret weapon recently stolen from the arsenal of the Ministry of Defense.
Oh hey, that's Jeff Wiggles. He not only provided the voice of Mushka in the away dub of Castle in the Sky,
it is a robot soldier capable of tremendous destruction,
but also did a great job as Captain Nemo in Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water.
This time we're going to locate their headquarters. I'm certain it's somewhere nearby.
I'm always excited to see him, as I feel like his talents were rather wasted in the way dub of Castle in the Sky.
It will always return to life. Laputa's power is the dream of all mankind.
Yeah, I can already feel the hate going on. It turns out, this caper is more of a public service, an attempt to tell the public that the government is experimenting in deadly weapons, and this robot is one of them. We also find that the robot was being piloted by a mysterious woman. Obviously, a lot of people are going to look at this character and immediately think of Nausicaa. However, my first thought was Clarice from the Castle of Cagliostro. I guess he just really had a thing for redheads. Zenigata arrives on the scene just as the military is preparing to take down this robot. As he meets up at headquarters, we are given information on the robot as well as the mysterious redhead. Her name is Maki Oimato. With her father, developed the robot. With just a picture, though, Zenigata is rather taken with her. Through the cover of an oil tanker, the robot launches again. Zenigata is on board Metro when he spots the robot. He attempts to pursue on foot when he sees that the military does not care about civilian casualties. He tries to stop one of the tank crew, but they ignore him. This shot looks familiar. A tank shell is then fired into an office building. Wow, it's really amazing how dark this episode is, considering the Red Jacket series is seen as much lighter compared to the much darker Green Jacket series. Debris is about to hit the crowd when Zenigata comes in to rescue a child, when the robot comes in to take the blow. Zenigata is stunned, forgetting to give the baby back to his mother. Military forces come in with looks like a Panzerschreck, but Zenigata stops them, saying that the robot is a protector, not an enemy. Zenigata gives chase on a motorcycle when we see inside the robot.
Okay, commence firing. Take him out, Maki.
Fire on them? I might kill someone.
Shoot.
I can't do it.
Okay, never mind. Just take it on home.
Lupin seems a little off in this one. So does Zenigata, for that matter. Wonder what's happening. But then again, I do rather love the description that's here on the back of the box. Basically saying that was given free rein to do whatever he wanted for this final episode. Zenigata is able to get to this base when Goemon sends out a dummy robot for the military to follow. Okay, if this miniature actually exists as a small remote control device, I want it. Zenigata finds the robot and is quickly taken captive by Lupin. When he comes to, Maki takes off the gag and gives him some tea. Maki tries dodging his questions, and Zenigata says she probably killed a lot of people today. It's strange to note that while Zenigata is really ripping into Maki, we hear the theme from the Castle of Cagliostro in the background. More so, when the debris is coming down, we hear the same music that was played in The Mystery of Mamo, when the supertanker tries to crush Lupin's Mini Cooper. We go into Maki's backstory. Maki and her father were offered a contract by Nagata and had made some amazing breakthroughs, but there wasn't any money to be made from it. So Nagata hired a repo man to take everything that they had worked on. This is quite interesting, and something that I kind of would have wanted to see in Castle in the Sky. The idea that there is a hierarchy of the robots. The idea that there are two-headed units in addition to the one-headed unit. Also, this is the rather fascinating thing as well, is that in this episode of Lupin, we see that the robots have a propeller inside their neck, and that's what's able to make them fly. But yet in Castle in the Sky, it must be the power of the levitation, Etherian crystal, that is able to keep the robot afloat. Then again, I'm probably looking for a connection where there probably isn't supposed to be one. It's here that Lupin comes in. However, Zenigata is onto him, saying it's Nagata's son in disguise. Nagata wanted to sell these robots to other countries, but since this was a military secret, that was impossible. So this stunt was a means to make the robot public and demonstrate its power to potential buyers. The disguised Lupin confirms this, leaving Zenigata with a bundle of dynamite and Maki to fly away in the robot to get shot down by the military. This is where the tape really starts to rip up, but if you look closely, Zenigata makes it out and onto the robot. It's here we see that Zenigata was Lupin in disguise when he rescues Maki. They fly to Nagata's factory, where they plan to destroy their means of production. Fujiko is already there and is recording Nagata meeting between the fake Lupin III. I also have to chuckle as she looks a lot like April O'Neil with that yellow jacket. The genuine articles meet up with the fakes and have a battle. Nagata Sr. attempts to end the fight with his robot army, but Maki reprogrammed them to destroy the factory. From the fireball, Maki, the fakes, and the robot walk towards the real Zenigata. She hands over evidence clearing Lupin when Zenigata wonders if she met with the real Wolf. She only mentions that the two are very similar. The episode ends in a musical number as Lupin and the gang drive away. What's interesting is the music is sung in English, so I'm left wondering if this is how it played out in the original version or if it was translated from the Japanese. So yes, that is the explosive finale of Lupin III Part 2. So, what do you think of these episodes? Which one do you prefer? For me... don't make me choose. They're both so good. I guess if I was pressed to have to pick one, I'd probably go with this one. Once again, wish the picture quality was better, but that's on my end. And also, do you think that the rest should receive a dub? Personally, I say yes. I've grown very well accustomed to hearing Tony Oliver as Lupin, and that's something I wish will continue for a while. After all, he was able to do the voice in several movies, as well as the Part 2 series. But if nothing else, I'd be very curious to hear what Tony Oliver's Lupin would sound like in these two episodes. Like I said, really wanted to do a dub comparison, but there are no other dubs to compare. Until next time, keep having fun.